Your user's protected by MFA, but an attacker still gets their session and access to the account. So how does that happen? And how do we stop it? In this video, I'm going to break down adversary-in-the-middle step by step. You'll see how the attacker intercepts the sign-in process, how they gain access even after the user completes multi-factor authentication, and then what IT folks can do to prevent this type of attack. I'm Campbell, a Microsoft Security MVP at Threatscape, and this clip is going to come from our recent on-demand webinar, where we also explored other ways that attackers target Entra. And so if you'd like the wider picture, the full on-demand webinar is linked in the description. Anyway, let's get into it. So adversary-in-the-middle, we're going to provision a server, and then we're going to phish our user. So let's go through that phished user experience first of all. My poor victim here, Adele, she's clicked that phishing link and she's presented with a page that looks like this. And I've made it kind of obvious that it's phishing because I've got my evil domain out there, but in the real world, we're going to choose something a little bit more, a little bit easier to phish our users with. Where AiTM is radically different than the phishing campaigns of yesteryear is that we do get to bypass MFA. And I'll explain how that works, but you can see here, Adele, she's going to punch in MFA. So how does all that work? How does she actually get to do MFA on a server that we own, right? Only Entra can force her to do MFA. So how does this all come together? Well, we're going to pull out security researchers' favorite tool. That's going to be Evil Jinx. And real attacks, they might not necessarily use Evil Jinx. They're going to use something else. But Evil Jinx is great for security researchers. You can get it on GitHub. And how does this all work? Well, you'll see, first off, this is a problem with modern identity in general. There's a whole bunch of identity platforms this is susceptible to. So the common denominator there is OAuth as a protocol. And you see here, our attack tool is going to give us a lure URL. That's what we phished our user into clicking. Then when the user went through that sign-in process, we get their password in plain text. And more importantly, we get what the screen refers to as authorization tokens. That's an access token as far as Entra ID is concerned. And we were able to do that because it was our server that they were authenticating to. And we simply bounced that traffic back and forward by Entra, typical man-in-the-middle type activity here. And node authorization tokens, those access tokens, they're going to look something like this. This is an encoded string. Fundamentally, what makes an access token so powerful is buried in that token, which is just an artifact that you can use, reuse. Buried in there is a whole bunch of permissions. And so, for example, if we then, a very simple demonstration type scenario, we take that token, that cookie, we inject it into the browser and we refresh the page, well, like Paul said, we get to be that user because we've stolen the cookie and now we're the bearer of it. We can do whatever we want. In quote unquote the real world, beyond just demonstration scenarios, it's going to maybe look something a little bit more like this, where Evil Jinx will run, or an equivalent tool to do the actual server and the adversary-in-the-middle type thing. But then when we get that access token, we're going to automate data exfiltration on the back of it. Because that access token is going to say things like, hey, you've got access to my mailbox, my OneDrive, my SharePoint, and so on and so forth. We can then automate the exfiltration of that. So even if we can revoke access after the token has been issued, there is that window where the bad folks can get the data. So let's talk about mitigations. The most, what would you say, popular one is going to be what we're calling phish-resistant MFA. New industry buzzword. Phish-resistant MFA is basically a type of attack, a type of credential that is impervious to man-in-the-middle. So when we say phish-resistant, and you'll see on the screen, we're talking about Windows Hello, we're talking about passkeys and FIDO2 security keys, and we're talking about cert-based auth. Really what phish-resistant means is we're going to use cryptography, and we're going to use certificates. The way that works is when a user first registers their device with Entra, that device is going to generate a unique public-private key pair. The public key goes to Entra and against the user's account. The private key, that's going to be stored securely on the device. So on the security key, like a YubiKey, the secure enclave or the TPM of a device if you're using passkeys, and it's never ever going to leave it. So that private key never leaves the device. Then when the user signs in, the passkey kind of does proof of possession of the private key by responding to a challenge. So, it sounds like it signs like a random value that's going to be generated by Entra called anonymous. And that never leaves the device. Entra verifies the signature, and the whole thing that makes this work is that challenge response is going to be domain bound, right? So the attacker tries to relay it, but the device just refuses to sign in because it never had that trusted relationship with the domain. So after we register our passkeys for our users, we actually have to enforce them. So it's one thing for a user to register a passkey, like a YubiKey or a passkey that exists in the Authenticator app or their iCloud. But registering it is one thing. We have to change conditional access to say you will only be able to use forms of phish-resistant authentication. Otherwise, I'm just not going to let you sign in. And what that would look like if the user falls for that same attack is, well, they're not going to enter their password. They're instead going to choose to authenticate in this demonstration with a physical security key. And you'll see this is where it all falls apart, because it's looking for that public-private key relationship with the EvoJinx server, and it doesn't exist. You have that relationship, or more accurately, your passkey, your security key, has that relationship with Entra. Microsoft login.com doesn't have it with ru-evo.com. So even when we unlock our security key and try to sign in, it's just going to fall apart in the adversary. To our delight, as blue teamers, they get absolutely nothing. Now that's phish-resistant authentication, and the great thing about that is it's portable. You can use it on any device. I can take my YubiKey or my passkey and I can use it on multiple devices. At the non-portable level, there's still some kind of cool stuff you can do to defend against it. In conditional access, if you enforce requirements around device state, like requiring a hybrid joined device or requiring an Intune compliant device, that's also going to get you phish-resistant MFA, because fundamentally under the hood, that's just certificates. All of this is certificates under the hood. In terms of other stuff that we might want to consider, a little bit more old school, you can use network level controls. So in conditional access, again, if you only allow list certain IP addresses, that's going to block it because the server in the middle doesn't have that IP address. You can modernize it a little bit by using something like Entra Global Secure Access, what's called the compliant network. And that's a little bit more portable, a little bit more supportive of kind of hybrid work environments. And then one of the other things that comes to mind, and there's way more, but we're cram stuff into a webinar. One of the other ones that comes to mind is token protection. So token protection is where we require a device to be registered with Entra in order to bind that token to the hardware of the device, like the TPM in the case of Windows. There's a whole bunch of limitations on this, i.e. doesn't support browser apps. It's only in preview for Mac, and that basically means you can only use it on Windows desktop apps. This is probably the direction of travel for token protection in the context of Entra, though. So that's what the attacker does, and then how you can kind of architect solutions around it. If you found that useful, understanding adversary-in-the-middle attacks is really only one part of protecting Entra. If you don't understand the other routes that attackers can take, you might still be exposed. So in the full webinar, we also break down things like device code phishing, compromised enterprise applications, third-party SaaS risks, as well as how to detect and respond to these types of attacks. That webinar is available on demand. The link is in the description. So if you check it out, also subscribe to keep in the loop with Microsoft Security.